like to welcome everybody to the July 2025 meeting of the Maryland Madison Historic District Board of Review. Could we have a roll call, please? Voice is gone.
Happy Smith. Here. Brian Rogers. Here. Jared Anderson.
Here.
Bill Jewell.
Here.
Ken McWilliams.
Here.
Jed Steelman.
Here.
Chris Cody.
Here.
So typically staff runs our organizational meetings, so if the board is okay with that, we'll continue that practice unless there's any objections. Seeing none. Do want to start off with just a little bit of meeting etiquette because we're having a little bit of troubles with the usage of mics. When I was here for your last meeting, there was a lot of squealing, and part of that is because the mics pick up, unfortunately, interference with electronic devices, including hearing aids. So one of our recommendations is to make sure your phones are silenced, as always. But if you're not speaking, to turn off your mic, and then make sure that you turn it on when you are speaking. Brenna's a great example of not getting close enough so the board can hear you. So also the board, make sure that you basically have to be about this close to the mics to really get picked up. And that's both for your audience, but also the people listening on the recording.
Nicole, the other solution, only have younger people on the board that don't have hearing aids.
Well, age down, Ken, okay? No. We appreciate you all, and we know that you're volunteers, but we want the best for you guys as well as the community, and we want to make sure that people can hear. One of the other things that will help that is limiting sidebar conversations amongst the board members, because that does get picked up on the camera. It's very good at picking things up. You'd be surprised what we can hear on the recording side that Brenna may not even be able to hear in person. So just be cognizant of that as well. What else, Brenna? Yeah, and upstairs. They can hear everything. No. I think that was it as far as etiquette goes. Joe, do you have anything you want to add? Anything from the board on that topic that they want to talk about?
I do actually, just in general, like staying on topic.
Get closer.
Sorry, staying on topic during discussions and not kind of getting out in the weeds on things that don't matter as much. And we can get more into that later.
Any meeting procedural type questions that you guys have?
I might, over the next couple months, be able to miss meetings. How do I attend remotely?
They have that ability to do that? Yeah. So we should be able to invite via Teams. That's the platform that the city uses through Microsoft. And I'll work with Brenna on that. You have to be able to be seen and heard the entire meeting. So you'll have to have being able to use a webcam, either your phone.
Okay.
That's typically how people do it if you have a smartphone.
Am I dialing in kind of with Teams?
Typically, if you have a smartphone, it's an app that you can download.
I can do it from my phone, though?
You can do it from your phone, or you can do it from a laptop that has a webcam. Mm-hmm.
Okay, great. Thank you so
And if
much.
anyone needs that capability and needs training on that, just reach out to myself or Brenna, and we can set up a one-on-one to go over how to use that technology.
How much in advance of the particular meeting do you need notification?
I would say at least 24 hours.
Okay, great.
So if you can let us know at least the Friday before, because, Brenna doesn't work on Sundays.
Excellent, thank you.
It makes your board is relatively easy to do that because we already project the PowerPoint, so we already have the technology here, and it's an easier add than some of the other boards. Now I will say we still have to have a quorum of people in the building in order to have a meeting, so no more than 3 of you can log in remotely at a time. Any other meeting procedural type questions? I think on your agenda, that section also has ethics. We printed out, just as a reminder, the code of ethics for you all. They were adopted by several boards back, even before I was here. Not that we've had any issues, but we just like to, when we have some trainings, we like to bring them up just as a reminder, because we know your board books have a lot of information in them. And if there's any suggestions on updates that are needed for those, we're open to hearing those as well. What is it? No, we'll do that with the procedure.
Nicole, I do have a question on that.
Yes.
I've been going through the book a lot today, and there's a couple of things that I didn't find in there that I'm not sure whether there's another source that I should be looking at.
Okay.
One is there a list of approved materials?
There is not. This board has never had a list of approved materials.
Okay, so when we blanket say the clad windows are approved, there's really not an approval there.
No, the
Okay.
board has never had a list of approved materials. There are appropriate materials, and I think the board has generally found aluminum clad windows as appropriate in most cases. But this board should be reviewing every application on a case-by-case basis based on the guidelines.
Right. So that would connect to staff approval as well.
Yes, and we use the guidelines for our review.
Okay.
There are a couple instances in the staff approval spreadsheet of what board reviews versus what staff, and there may be some mentions of certain materials. Windows, for example, board gave us the ability to review ones that requested aluminum clad windows, but if they request vinyl, those have to come to the board. There's a couple of those instances where materials specifically are mentioned.
Well, that was the case that I had a question with is
Okay.
we're approving things outside of the guidelines by approving vinyl window or aluminum clad windows because there's no approved list of materials. The same thing would be true with the siding products. If we're doing a staff approval, but there's no list of approved products, we have to be giving them a certificate of appropriateness without actually meeting the guidelines.
So siding, I know specifically that cement board siding is mentioned in the guidelines
Right.
as an appropriate alternative material. And I thought that aluminum clad was also mentioned within the window section.
I may be getting ahead of a topic that was going to come up later.
And we are going to talk
There's more
about
about-
rules of procedure and staff reviews, yeah.
Okay, well, maybe we'll go deeper into that later.
Okay.
My next question is, what's it called? Rules of procedure. I couldn't find that. Now, is that the document that you just gave us that has the list of?
That's part of it.
Okay.
Yep.
It's part of it. Where would I find the whole document?
You have your board book with you?
I do, and I couldn't find it today. I might have missed it.
Procedures?
Yeah.
It's should be the second tab for everyone who has their board book. So these were passed, the originals were passed, and we'll talk about that too, in 2011. There's been several amendments, so you should have the 2012 amendments, the 2017 amendments, there's a couple of those, 18, 20, and then the administrative review guide, which is what Brenna also printed, just on the off chance that people didn't bring their board book, because that's what we use. We don't necessarily get into the weeds of the rest of the rules of procedure, but they are all in your book. They're also on the website.
So this references this document.
Yes.
Okay. That's what I was having a hard time figuring out is it was numbered, but I couldn't figure out what document it was
Yes.
attached to.
Well,
And these are governed by the ordinance, or they're governed by the,
They're governed, we'll get into that,
okay.
yes. Is Reed seen it? Did you get that? Any other questions or discussion on meeting procedures, etiquette, ethics, before we move into Ryan's topic? I do want to make sure that I give Tony a chance, or the mayor who's leaving the chance. Okay. If you guys want to say anything about meeting, ethics, process. Okay. So now, Ryan, we'll move on to rules of procedure. So like I was saying, just so the audience can hear, this board has had a variety of amendments to rules of procedure. That's kind of the reason for this meeting, because there's been lots of discussion on it. The initial rules of procedure was approved by the board in 2011, and then has had a variety of amendments all the way till 2023. In 2020 was probably the largest rule of procedure amendment that I know of, in which the board granted staff a variety of staff review materials, or design elements rather. Some of that started out as part of COVID, and I believe that board saw the benefit of the expedited review, and then made that change official after the COVID period. So I wanted to have this meeting with Joe to talk about the ordinance and what the board, what powers the board has in terms of its rules of procedure.
So, Nicole, if I can, so I was as involved in that as you, and so the mayor will remember when Mike Pittman and I met with him and you in his office before we were appointed, I said, we have to remove the animus toward the board and the community. And to do that, we have to stop bringing people in front of the board for things that trained staff should have, because you had no responsibility before me.
Yes. Yeah. No, Ken's going to take all the credit, yes.
Thank you.
Josh
But no,
Fuller was the chair at the time. Let's see who else can I give credit to.
Yes, I know, Josh was chair, but Mike and I drove those rule changes, significant rule changes,
Yes.
procedure changes through several meetings, and it was adopted it was never, I know we were in COVID, but that was never a drive to me. It was a drive to reduce why people had to appear before the board. And you were stunningly well-trained compared to anyone that you see up here, ever. And it just made so much sense to use that skill. So that's why, that was my motion that started that. So,
I appreciate you sharing that.
and
Also, it was a way to streamline your meetings
oh, absolutely.
as well, because there was a period of time where these meetings were 3 and 4 hours long from time to time, and that just seemed
Yeah.
a bit burdensome
Yeah.
for a lot of things that didn't necessarily need to come.
No, I was an example. I changed from smart board in my garage to brick, and I had to come before the board. So, so it's just it was just people were lining up for wasting their time. And so there was a good change, except for one. I went too far in Windows, so, which we'll talk about.
So that's the background on that. Joe, do you want to?
Yeah, the only thing that I would say is, the board does have the ability to do things with regard to procedure. In the past, what comes to mind are certain notice requirements. While yes, we follow what the state code indicates, there is a little bit of leeway when it comes to that. The putting the signs as opposed to mailing out so much, that we did some changes with that. And then the staff reviews have obviously been one. There have been others with meeting times and other things like that. But the board, I believe, does have the ability to make those changes. The ordinance is a little bit wonky, I think, and I'm trying to remember if this got changed, because there was a period of time where I was not representing the historic board. But things like guidelines and things like that have to actually go before the council to be changed, and other areas have to be changed. But things like this, such as board rules and procedure, the board has the authority to kind of deal with those.
Brought this up kind of offhand in the past, but using the Madison Courier as our vehicle is just a terrible vehicle now. I mean, is there something, well, I think we need to go back to certified letters also to, inform neighbors of what's going on. So we need some kind of vehicle that meets every rule, but
You're referring to public notice.
that's right. Two pieces of that, but yes, public notice and then neighborhood notice, so.
So, do you don't like the sign? Do we still do the sign?
We still do
You
signs.
don't like the sign?
If they're up and if they're not hidden, so it's problematic how effective they are.
Yeah, no, understood. And that's something the board, if they wanted to, they could certainly take up. I don't know that I view and Bob's sitting over there, and I know he doesn't take offense, but the Courier, by that Bob, by reducing
Yes.
its publishing days, has been a little difficult. Now, there has been recognition of that at the state level, and so there are other ways to potentially look at different things, like doing things online, and so I'm happy to look into that if there is something like that, or suggest something with regard to the way those are doing it. I will tell you, I'm not a big fan of creating wheels if we don't have to, and so I would look at other communities. What are other communities our size, i.e. North Vernon, i.e. that have the same issues that we have with regard to publications? What are they doing? And to see what it is. But, I think there's also a difference between public notice of the meetings and neighbors.
That's right.
Right.
There is.
And so there may be a way to kind of deal with that one way or another.
So I'd love to chime in and offer a suggestion and some perspective. It's my understanding that online notice usually is sufficient under state law these days. I know certified letters, while the gold standard, are a burden on staff to have to send out and organize every time. One very simple practical solution that I've seen work in other communities is a bigger sign. There's a very highly visible upgrade in signage design often achieves the desired effect for the immediate neighbors.
And we have people complain about the cost of the letters, because
Yes,
we
right,
would
I understand that.
we would forward that cost on to the applicant. It wasn't the city's cost.
Okay, thank you.
Well, like the zoning board actually has you do them yourself. So that might be another avenue to take the administrative part out of it, because it's time, and it makes it so that we do get neighbors noticed, or notice to neighbors.
Since I staff that board, I'll just speak to that. There's still quite a bit of administrative duties with that, because it would actually be easier for the city to send them out ourselves, because the number of times that applicants have to be tabled at those meetings because they didn't send out their certified letters, it's difficult to track, and if they don't bring them in before the meeting, they don't know until they get to the meeting, and some of those meetings go really late. So, for example, if your last applicant sits through his entire meeting and didn't send out his letters, he's come and can't be heard, is the only issue with that.
I guess just out of curiosity, do you guys get a lot of complaints from neighboring property owners that say, oh man, I didn't know they were going to do that and I'm opposed to it and I wish I would have come to the meeting after the fact? Or is it, I'm just curious, is this a problem that we're hearing within the community or what?
So no, I don't ever hear anything, but I think that's because people aren't aware. You know,
I've heard those complaints.
They're not seeing the signs or?
They didn't know it was going to happen. The one that really comes to mind is the construction was behind their house, so it wasn't like the right-hand side house or the left-hand side house or across the street. It was a pole barn in lieu of a garage, very tall, that went up behind their house. So maybe where the sign was wouldn't have been where they normally would have walked.
Don't they have to, oh, and maybe that's the other thing, is maybe we put some better stipulations on where the sign goes. You know, maybe it's got to be on the front street, or, I don't know what the rules are on where the sign goes necessarily. We tell them to put it in their front windows usually.
We give them one for each public right away, but in a lot of cases, especially if they're building on the rear and they have a fence, it may be in their back window that's not visible.
I guess bottom line is, if that's something that the board wants to look at, they're certainly welcome to do so. I mean, I guess my suggestion on most of this stuff is if you want to put something forward, and you can do whatever you want to, I would suggest to potentially work with staff, and then let's put some kind of a draft together that we can get out to all of the board members. And if that's what you want to propose, we can put it at new business during the meetings and say, I want to propose this amendment to the rules of procedure. Or if you don't want to work with staff, if you want to work with me to do so, or whatever, I guess typically that's how it works from the city council level and from most of my other boards that I deal with, is we try to get something in writing to be put before the board to do so. Or the other option is you could you could develop your own rules of procedure subcommittee, and if they want to meet and put together some kind of a draft, I mean, I guess that's an option as well. That I've seen work from on the council level and different things like that. So,
Chris, is there a better size? Is there?
So I've seen signs that are, outdoors, like 4 feet by 2 feet, like very large signs, things that the applicant can be responsible for having to pay for, but the city can help, with a vendor set them up to get. But before we go down any of these roads, I think it's helpful to ground the conversation in the legal standard that actual notice is not required for every neighbor. It's not like everyone is entitled to actually, for sure, receive notice of this. That the responsibility of the city is just to put forth a reasonable effort to do the best we can to publicly post it in accordance with state law. But, there's almost always going to be someone that didn't hear about it, no matter what you do. So the standard isn't that we have to be perfect here.
Well, I had experience putting an addition on the back of a house in our previous city in another state. The signs were 4x4. We had to pay for that. In fact, I might have brought one down here using it as packing for something else, but it was a 4x4 signs with the green metal stakes in the front yard. We had, we had to mail, registered mail to every property owner within 200 feet of our property. So we're talking about up there and down there. I don't remember how many we sent out. We had to do that. Plus an ad in our local newspaper. And that was a village. It was not a city. It was a village of 9,000. And, I don't remember any problem with people not hearing about it, but every effort was made for people to show up. And then again, the only people that really showed up were next door neighbor, people behind us.
Yeah, so the question is on the certified mails for the other boards, if we hear if they don't receive a green card. No, yes, we still hear if they don't receive a green card back, because I can tell you, I sent out certified letters. I sent about 50 to 60 letters for the Plan Commission and Zoning Board. I'm still getting letters back, and that was 2 months ago. Because if they're not delivered, they hold on to them and they keep retrying. And we have some cases where they don't get the certified green card back, but we require the receipts. So as long as they turn those in, but the issue I keep seeing is they say that they mailed them and they didn't bring them to the meeting, but they claim they mailed them, and so we hear it and then we never get them. I hold on to those approvals, but it's still the process wasn't followed, and I'm looking at alternatives on how to better that practice as well. Are you wanting to make a recommendation change for that, Ken, or just wanted to have discussion?
I was thinking of doing that new business next meeting.
Okay.
Get with Chris and get, the size he's talking about. We'll start from there with the discussion.
Yeah, the largest our printer can do is 11 by 17. So if it's bigger than that, we will have to outsource, and timing on those, I'm not sure on, because our sources here in our small community are limited. That's true. Yeah.
Seems like we're trying to solve a problem that we really don't understand is a problem. We're using a lot of anecdotal observations to try to form policy. So maybe the better thing to do before we redirect staff, which is already very busy because we've got a very busy planning commission, very busy application process on zoning, very busy permitting process, all those inspections, before we create more demands on staff, maybe with an intentional observation to really collect more information, like, are there really people who are somehow being affected by not getting directly noticed by the city that there's been an application on a property that's adjoining, in whatever direction. So I'm just being really cautious here. We're brainstorming, which is all great, but I would also like to just get this out on the table, because I think this is a little bit of the elephant in the room. We need to have better communication. And Ken, you said it best. We intentionally talked years ago about reducing the animus that this board somehow, with the staff and the community, has, right? And so I individually appointed each and every one of you to work with me, my staff, and support the city's efforts, because of preservation is so important. What I've truly seen over the course of the last probably 6 months is a breakdown between this board and this staff. And really what I'd like to see is better communication, and not read about it after every historic board meeting. Somewhere along the line, there's a breakdown here. And it's repairable with better communication, and not waiting till the next meeting to then make another kind of proposal, because we're trying to get all this stuff out on the table so staff can work well with the board. And I'll just my observations, I've been on both sides. I was the president of the BZA, and I was in front of the historic board probably 15 or 20 times doing properties all across the town. And I've had mixed results, but as mayor, one of my top priorities was a very, very strong preservation effort, and that's conducted with very good, experienced staff and a strong board that understands the role that we're trying to achieve here with preservation and working with the staff and with the community and getting that balance. The balance is really the hardest part. Just as you have received complaints from residents about not being aware of something, happens to us all the time. I mean, literally, I could hand someone a piece of paper and Ryan could say, I didn't know about it. But we've also had complaints about the board from residents and businesses. So we are really trying to figure out a good approach. And to me, it's not making things harder, it's making things better. And it's trusting each other and trusting the staff. I feel like that there needs to be better communication with the board and the staff. And so as we go through, the rest of today's agenda, please keep that in mind, because there shouldn't be any surprises at a historic district board review meeting that we're reading about candidly later. And that is happening every month. So I'm glad we're having this and getting it. I'm not a person that minces words. I get things out on the table. If it upsets you, I'm happy to talk with you. Let's have coffee. Let's work it out. This is too important to get wrong. I actually think we're doing a good job in a very difficult environment on a topic that's extremely important. We're being proactive. We updated the guidelines after 30 years. We updated our district survey after 30 years. And, let's work out kind of the kinks on how to make things work smoother so that the public isn't intimidated to come here. That's all I really want to say. But as you kind of go through the rest of the agenda, I just want to get that on the table, that the work you guys do is really important, and it's really important to the community. But I'm seeing more and more conflict, and I'd like to get the conflict reduced. Thanks, guys.
Okay.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Mayor, for sharing your perspective and opinion. It's always informative and valuable to the board to hear the community perspective. To your point about trying to be direct in communication and move things forward, I think in regards to this notice proposal and the conversation we've had, which I think is a very worthwhile conversation, what we're doing now, I'm sure, per the city attorney, is legally sufficient, correct? Our current, very much so. We've had a brief conversation about how to enhance what we're already doing, specifically around maybe larger signs. I think that that's something that, rather than putting on staff, that we, members of the board, need to take upon ourselves. And perhaps we can look around for options to create, say, a 4x4 sign. My suggestion would be to have generic ones, laminated, able to exist outside. The existing system of posting notices inside windows could still remain. Potentially, we just have supplemental signs that when you apply are available. And that's something that maybe the board members ourselves, we can take upon ourselves to look at what options are available in the community to provide those to the city to then provide to applicants.
I will tell you, I think, and this is since we went to the sign mechanism, we had one lawsuit that brought up those and was disposed of as we.
Yeah, I mean, it takes a true failure for notice to be, ineffectual and to be illegal, at least in my experience. It's, and certainly the effort the city's putting forth now is legally sufficient.
Anything else on that topic?
Yeah, I've got a question for the mayor. You mentioned that there's an increase in conflict, and is this like the public unhappy with the way we're performing?
As I mentioned, Jed, it's from some businesses, some residents, and some staff and my observations. It really feels like there's, and you guys tell me, you feel, maybe you don't feel conflict. I sense it, I feel it, I see it. And I don't attend very many of the meetings, but I watch several of them. And then I read about them normally in the paper, and I find out something new in the paper. And I just feel, I'm sensing that there is conflict going on and that it's growing, not getting less. And communication is a real key to reducing the conflict, and surprises are the things that escalate the conflict. And I have been I will be honest with you, I've been surprised at some of the things that I've observed that I'd like to avoid. With better communication, never mind.
And we acknowledge that it goes both ways. The mayor's mentioning the communication between the board and staff. So if there's better ways that we can communicate as staff with you guys as a board, please share those with us as well.
I have one little comment on that, and that kind of gets into another issue. We have very strict rules about approaching community members. So if we drive around town and we see something happening on a building, our procedure, I think our procedure, and please say if this is really how you want this to go, is to send you guys a photograph or just a comment, can we find out what's going on at this property? And so I think this is done probably pretty often. I'm assuming other board members probably do it too. And so this is probably a lot of times it's unauthorized work. It's not something that, the city has approved. We're not casting any blame or anything here. But I'm finding that I really don't, I might get an initial response, okay, we're looking into it, or, that came before the board or that came before staff, and then I'll have a follow-up question. And a lot of times I'll never hear the outcome. I'll never hear, there is a situation with a person who, can I bring up a specific situation? I won't mention an address, but a transom got bricked in. So I'm thinking the transom getting bricked in, that's really not good. I mean, you could block your transom from the inside or something, but I really want the brick opening to stay, the historic brick opening. And so I never heard back. What was the upshot there? What went on there? I would love for there to be a procedure for the follow-up, for the response. We contacted them, this is what got said, or that one's in progress, or just a little more communication there. I'm feeling a lack of communication on that kind of thing.
I'll speak to that one. That one is still in progress. I know the one you're talking about.
But I'd love to get an email. Love to get a quick email back, in progress. That'd be fine. It doesn't have to be wordy, but just so we know what's going on, because I have sent them in and I have felt like, I never heard back.
So in other cases, like our nuisance ordinance, we have the report and issue section on our OpenGov portal. Just think about whether that may be a source for us to collect your information on, instead of an email or a text message. Then you guys can submit it anytime, and we can lay out a process on follow-ups on that. We use that for all of our permitting applications, and we've got a flow chart, so it keeps it in our inbox until we follow up. So I don't know if the board would want us to look into adding that or not.
I'm thinking that sounds very promising, so thank you. Thank you for that suggestion.
And we can do, I'll kind of draft it out, and I am not available for your upcoming meeting, but we'll schedule, I don't think we're going to get through our entire docket today, because I have to leave at 5. But we'll probably schedule a follow-up, and then maybe I can show it on the screens on how you can report that.
Since you're leaving at 5, could we move on to the Windows amendment?
Yep. I just want to make sure, anything else on public notice?
If we're moving on to the Windows Amendment, I imagine that's probably going to take the remaining 20 minutes that we have. So I did come prepared with an ordinance amendment proposal that I think speaks to what the mayor's, just the concerns that he just expresses. Perhaps that is not something we can deal with at this meeting, but just to, let the mayor that we're thinking about it. And that has to do with the application standards. I think one of the challenges that the public has is they submit, a wide variety of levels of completeness of submittal documents that then leads to unexpected conversations happening in front of this board. And I think having more detailed application standards, specifically requiring measured drawings and making that explicit, and then also having staff explicitly provide to applicants the sections of the guidelines that their application will be judged under, will help with transparency from a public perspective as they prepare to come before this board. So I'm interested in working with city staff and the rest of the HDBR on trying to improve those submittal requirements in the interest of transparency and better communication with the public.
I like Joe's suggestion about some subcommittees. We have done that in the past. So Chris, I'm going to tag you in on a ordinance subcommittee if the board is okay with going that route.
I would like to be part of that committee as well.
And Happy can have 15 seconds, and then you can have, so.
I was just going to say, I think that sounds great.
So yesterday, HMI had a post and included the 2006 district map that doesn't have primary and secondary areas, but it has huge areas on the east of the bridge is not in the district, and north of Allenbach is not in the district. We've tortured those two groups of people daily.
The map they provided should be of the National Historic Landmark District, not of our,
I don't know, yes, I know there's different things, I don't know the difference.
yes.
Okay. All right, never mind, Siri,
No, that was a good, no.
I'm trying.
I think your point is a good one, which our ordinance does make a distinction.
Yes, it
Our
does,
ordinance does make a distinction. I think it was very intentional.
yes.
And that is those in the outlying areas, those properties aren't as contributing the way the core historic district properties are.
Right.
And there's more flexibility with regards to the improvements that they can make. You can't tear them down, you can't move them, but they don't live under the same microscope, I think, by design. And
Correct.
we've forgotten that. So if there's a way to reintroduce that and make those proper distinctions, that would be good. And I thank you for bringing that up. And I want to make the other thing too, just clarification. It's also on staff to do really good preparation and communication with the applicants to give you the information you need so that you understand exactly what they're applying for, why they're doing it, and if it is appropriate for the staff. So I think staff can do a better job of that too, as was when I said I'm making all kinds of observations. That's one that I've expressed to them as well. They're the professionals on site that have the time to process these applications and working one-on-one with the applicants to bring them to you so you can see some logic behind what their recommendations are and what the applicants are actually. There should be good clarity, and I notice sometimes there's not very good clarity. You're trying to figure it all out while you're here with them, and they're asking for a decision.
Yep, and I would second that as well, and I think part of that is Brenna's, I'm going to defend her a little bit, I think she's still trying to get her feet under her a little bit, and we went from Brooke Peach, who I think was she really worked with a lot of the applicants a lot, and so I think that's something that Brenna will do a good job at, and get there, because we've also had that trouble at the Plan Commission and BZA, and we're doing a much better job of that, of working, and I'm almost taking my legal hat off here, but it's almost treating the applicants like a customer as opposed to an applicant. It's just trying to help them get to where we need to get to, and if you guys, and I had this meeting with the BZA, or with Plan Commission, and I said, if you guys have issues, bring them to me, bring them to staff so they can address them prior to the meeting, because I think, to Ken's point, is nobody likes to come in here and it's like, and I'm not saying that this is what it is, the Spanish Inquisition.
It's just what it is.
Nobody wants that, so if there are issues that people can solve prior to, it'll make your meetings go faster, and it'll make the public be more apt to not have
So
have
Joe,
this,
to that, the mayor and Tony, Nicole, Brandon met with Bill and I, and that was one of the pieces we talked about, the application procedure. I don't care if they started online, that's not an application. The application is when you come in and meet with Brenna, and she goes through everything, including what's going to happen before the board. So that, we've talked about that.
I would like to make a point on that as well. I know we're eating into a lot of our time, but if you look at the ordinance, the application process solves a lot of these issues if we follow that process. Now, I don't know whether it's been amended or not. I didn't see any amendments, but taking a look at that process and renewing it, I think would make a big difference. And then to address Bob with the animosity, the front 2 pages of this book is do's and don'ts and expectation of the board. I found most of the problems with the meetings are already problems that's been addressed on those 2 pages. So looking at the documents could do a world of good for everybody, I think.
So, I don't know, 4 months ago, 5 months ago, I came to a board meeting and I was concerned about windows replacements, high-quality wood historic windows getting replaced. And I remembered back to the preservation conference that had been here last October a year ago, and there was a whole special session for residents of Madison where a national park historian specifically called out a large, well, not a large, a significant noticeable number of windows replacements that were inappropriate for the historic district, either maybe vinyl or, and these of course were not staff-approved windows replacements. I'm not saying that staff is approving really lousy window replacements. He was just commenting that we're losing a significant proportion of our windows. So that was on my mind. Then I saw a window getting replaced that was in, I would consider, pristine condition. And I was also noticing that sometimes we see things that are less related to our buildings, our fabric, and more related to new construction, new builds, or a dugout cover or something. And I felt we should come back a little bit to safeguarding the historic fabric of Madison. This doesn't mean that if a window application comes before us that we will turn it down. I think the staff has been very reasonable in a lot of their approach to the window applications, and we would be the same. But keeping our windows is a really daunting process for anybody, for this board, for staff, for everybody, because of the economics of restoring your wood windows, the economics of replacement windows. This is really very, very difficult to protect a historic district in the face of modern economics and people who are struggling financially. I think it's a community conversation. If we don't have the community conversation here, we can't really grapple with these issues. If staff handles the wood replacement, it's kind of a somewhat of a behind-the-scenes, less visible process. It sort of happens seamlessly, it happens not invisibly, but it happens behind the scenes. We hardly get any information about it. We don't get really documentation. We just get notified, hey, it happened at this address. So I'm asking for a wider conversation about how we save the windows in Madison that can be saved, the ones on the front facade, the architecturally defining, beautiful windows that just really make our historic district. I don't want to see them lost, and I think those conversations should be happening here. And that's why I'm proposing the windows. The amendment, which was to bring back under board control something that had been, as everybody's already discussed, sent over to staff in very noble and good reasons.
Thank you. I will say in the almost 15 years that I've been, actually I think it's 20 total now, that either me or my office has been involved in city government, windows are probably might be the number one item of contention with everybody. And when it comes to this board and when it comes to the historic district and all the above. So I understand where you're coming from, and the board has every they've got the right to handle, they gave it and they can bring it back or whatever. The only thing I would say is sometimes we don't want to throw the baby out with the bathwater. You've got, because it sounded like to me, you want a increased focus on windows, but maybe it's not all windows. Maybe it's really an increased focus on facade windows, front facade windows, or something like that. And I'm not trying to put words into your mouth by any stretch of the imagination, but maybe there's a happy medium here where we're talking about facade windows as opposed to back windows and alleyway window. I don't know. I don't know if that's one way to look at it or not. But there's certainly windows they're a hot button topic, and I think they're tough for several reasons. I think one, cost. Two, we have seem to have a very limited number of craftsmen that can work on these things in a timely manner, which obviously, which is costly and all the above. So, I guess I'm just flagging that this is a long-standing issue, and probably the one that seems to spark as much controversy as any. It's either windows or siding. Always seems to spark the most. So.
Yeah, I want to jump in and back up Mr. Jenner here. This is not just in Madison. This is nationwide. This is the entire historic preservation movement. The number one issue, the number one problem is windows. And the vast majority of federal agency compliance programs are moving towards just allowing blanket window replacements. We've heard it from both sides that we need to do this for climate change. We can't require window repairs because of economic hardship and lack of craftsmen. There's so many reasons why windows are at this focal point. And I don't have any issues with Happy's proposal. I think this board taking a look at more window replacements to see if we can be of assistance is not a bad idea. But I do want to join Mr. Jenner in cautioning everyone that this is a problem that I don't think that we're going to solve here in Madison, because no one in the entire country can solve this and do this to a full level of adequacy. Just because of a lot of external factors. Again, I support what Happy's doing though in this amendment, just because that doesn't mean we shouldn't try.
Happy used me as a sounding board of all people. Never understood that as she was crafting this, and I support it totally. But I've told her I'll probably never agree that window you're talking about is a historic window. Wood windows were the only thing available into the 1970s. So, we'll have to talk what's historic, and your facade idea is a great idea, Joe. Great focus. So,
let me just jump in here. I'm all for preserving the wood windows as much as practicable. I attended the same seminar last October as Happy did, and also I went to a Historic Madison Incorporated had a seminar, just a one-evening seminar on windows and restoring your windows and how you can do it yourself. And a lot of it was the philosophy that it's actually not a philosophy. You can see it. When you change the windows, you change the look of the house. And they're right now they're redesigning storm windows. I mean, the storm windows on our house are probably 1970s, and they're not accurate. But if we wanted to spend the money, if we were to get around to where we're starting to replace those things, we would want to get the historic storm window, which sits recessed back and brings back the look. If you look at that red brick building down the street, you can see the windows are recessed. And modern storm window protrudes from the front of the house. So I got one other analogy I'll bring into it. A friend of mine always wanted a 1964 Ford Mustang, very expensive, yada, 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 and he finally got a 1965 Mustang, but very proud of it. Original interior, original paint, original, everything was original about the thing. And if you change one of those things, you devalue the whole car, if he would take it out and paint it a different color. So that's as close to an analogy as I can get to keeping the original windows where practicable.
Yeah, my comment would be twofold. I think the front facades need to be very well reviewed, both from siding and windows. I think there's a lot of modern material today that doesn't look historic, and the reveals aren't historic, and those sorts of things. So I think Joe's recommendation of looking at these things from a front facade perspective is really critical. The National Park Service, has window survey, and you can go through and go down the list and go through all that. That requires somebody with expertise too. We certainly don't have enough staff to be able to do that for every window application, but there's certainly things we can do as again, as primary and secondary areas, I think, become more of a focus. I can tell you that, there are areas around National Historic Landmarks that's had some things done to them that probably weren't appropriate. Were they aluminum clad windows? Yes. Were the siding a different kind of siding? Yes. Was it right? Probably not. So again, for those of us who are trained and who have passion in preservation, we notice those things. For visitors who come here and those residents who expect us to hold up those qualities, I think there's things that we should be doing as it relates to windows and siding, and I know those are two important issues, especially to the front facades of our homes. So I just wanted to state that the National Park Service has a lot of guidance on windows and window surveys and what things you should look at and all that sort of stuff. But again, who's doing that? Who's paying for all that? Gets really challenging.
Nicole, since you want, will you let Happy's amendment come to a vote?
As promised, it is on your agenda for your meeting on Monday.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, so that was our whole intention, was not to delay the vote. I wanted to make sure that legally that we weren't doing anything that had to be
Thank you.
backtracked, because that has happened to me with staff amendments in the past. So with Joe's approval, which I believe he has given, yes, it will be on your agenda for Monday for a vote.
Thank you.
I do want to say that, well, first off, I appreciate your amendment, Happy. While I do see the importance to the face of the facade of a property, I would say it could get tricky with, we're sitting here on a corner of a pretty, notable intersection here in town. And so, for example, the building across the street, would the front be considered, but then the side not, because it is that's not the primary facade or the face of the building. I think that's just something we need to think about. I am in support of an amendment of some sort, but I do want us to tread a little cautiously, because if you're on a corner lot, if you're a notable property that there's roads all the way around you, you can see the front facade, but then what happens if you change the other three facades? Then it's really going to start to be noticeable. So,
Yeah, and I would just say that typically when you look at planning and zoning regulations, it talks about sides visible from major arteries. So
Yeah, that's such a fantastic question. We just had a major debate about that exact topic over a program comment being issued by the President's Advisory Council on Historic Preservation, and the conclusion that their general counsel and the National Trust General Counsel came to was that primary facade, much like Tony just said, means any facade that is of primary relationship to the public right-of-way, and that a building can in fact have more than one primary facade, depending on how it's situated. So, primary facade, as kind of counterintuitive as it seems, is generally considered to be in the plural when it comes to historic preservation contexts.
And same with zoning. In our zoning code, it's very distinctive on a corner lot having two front yards. And my recommendation, if that's the direction the board is headed, is to use that same type of language so that we're consistent.
Yeah, and you may have this may have been sent to me before, but I apologize if I didn't totally look at it. I'm just looking at it now. The part about staff review, I mean, I don't even know if that even would have to be in the amendment, because it's always been my understanding that if you're replacing it with like materials, that's allowed. You don't have to do a C of A or anything. It's always been my understanding. So I don't even know if that part would even, Chris, I'll lean on you a little bit there, but just looking at it on its face, I don't know that that's even necessary.
I think that you're right, but it never hurts to provide more information than is absolutely necessary.
That's fair. That's fair. But just,
Can I ask a quick question just about procedure? I asked about attending meetings remotely because it does appear that perhaps after so many months of husbanding this amendment, this is a meeting I probably won't be able to attend this coming Monday meeting. And I'm a boomer, so my ability to attend remotely is probably somewhat tricky. So if I'm not here, can another board member make the amendment proposal, and can it be voted on in my absence? Of course. Okay, just checking.
Yeah, because we've presented this. That's the whole reason why I think a previous board, the procedure process of amendments was drafted by the board. So you can always amend that, I guess. But that's, I think, the intention of why the board had 2 meetings. So you've already proposed it, so theoretically at Monday's meeting, you guys can have further discussion, but you just need to make a motion and vote. And anyone can do that.
I just wanted to add one other thing. There's a lot of houses in town with beautiful windows, and you see Madisonians keeping their wood windows. They do it, I consider, they do it as a gift to the town. And part of me really wants to honor those people who spend the extra money, who go to the time and effort, who keep their windows gorgeous. There's people like that. I think honestly, preservation in this town is happening irregardless of us. I wish we were helping more, but sometimes I feel like the people of this town are really keeping preservation alive. And I just want to honor those people and try to do our best to save windows that can be saved.
Absolutely.
Happy, that's great sentiment. I just wanted to jump in with a suggestion as well. I also cannot be at the Monday meeting in person, but I am planning to submit written comments on the agenda items that I'm concerned about. I know that I won't be able to actually vote. I'm hoping that my comments can simply be read for the board's consideration, just like any other public comment. And I think that that's a good thing to do, just in case you run into technical difficulties trying to access Teams, to just always have the backup of having the written comments on record.
Any issues?
Thanks.
Joe?
No, if he submits it, just like you said, that's fine. And I, to kind of echo what the mayor was saying earlier, I'm going to do my best to try and be at meetings, but there are some times where I'm not. And frankly, there's so many meetings where I'm not needed, and it's of no value for me to sit over here for 2 hours and not say anything. If you guys do get the agenda, or you get the staff or whatever, and you guys have questions, please feel free to reach out. Email me or whatever. Nicole's usually hitting me up at some point in time prior to, if there's something controversial. But generally speaking, unless Nicole flags it me as there's going to be something controversial, I'm probably not going to sit over here and waste the city's time on
Joe, we haven't had any consequential agendas for months.
No, that's right.
But this coming one will be, so.
He's aware of that,
And
but
I was already out of town. I
yeah,
apologize.
we do want to give an update. I want to be cognizant because it is after 5 and I do have to leave.
Yeah.
I'm taking the notes for this meeting, and I want to be cognizant of your all's time. So I would like to recess this and have us pick it up at a later date to finish the agenda, if the board is okay with that. But at your upcoming meeting, there is going to be an amendment. The Finleys have requested to table their application, so they will not be on your agenda on Monday. It will be on your agenda for tabling, but there will not be discussion on that.
That's 111
Yes.
East 4th.
I'm not clear what that one is.
That was the demolition request.
We're not approving the demolition.
No.
We don't have anything to do with
You were going to be
that.
looking at the rebuild, but they are not presenting it right now.
Well, I was going to ask about that too. I would need to recuse myself in this
If you
case, I
did the
believe.
design, yes.
But wouldn't we just be reapproving the same design that was approved? Unless he changes it, but
I will
I
have
couldn't
to-
understand why
I
it was
will have
coming
to
in.
look closer at that application. So their
Yeah.
initial application came in while I was on maternity leave. So I'm not as familiar with that application.
Well, it's
as-
my understanding he's not changing anything other than he's
I'll look
tearing
at
the
it.
original house down and building back what the design was.
For 111 East 4th Street is asking, they're gonna ask to be tabled. So they will not be at the meeting on Monday. Staff is gonna represent them and say that. But we wanted to give you guys a heads up because we know that is one of your controversial topics coming up. Is the board okay with recessing and picking back up?
Do you need a motion?
It's an organizational meeting, so do we need a motion?
Well, I guess you do need a motion. Are you really recessing?
I guess we'll adjourn and then we'll reschedule.
You want to reschedule it and have this stuff on the, yeah, I think that's fine.
My request for the board, before you adjourn, is just to, if you want to expedite the next meeting, if you will send us any of your training, educational workshop ideas, you can email those or drop them off with Brenna specifically. And then I will get with Chris, Ken, and Ryan on ordinance subcommittee, and then we'll let the full board know when that may occur. So if you guys have ordinance amendments, we can talk about them then. And then the goal is that subcommittee will report to you guys at your regular meetings.
Do we hear a motion to adjourn?
I
Second.
Okay. Before you leave, does anyone want to take advantage of the scholarships for the state conference? So we have to turn those names in Friday.
Is city staff going?
We always offer it to the board versus scholarships because we have it in the budget for city staff to go.
Okay.
But if nobody takes it, yes, we will use the scholarships. I'm not going to waste them.
Okay, so from staff, Brenna, you're definitely going no matter what. Nicole, are you going?
We have it in our department budget, we have both of us already budgeted to go, yes.
Okay, and then we have scholarships.
We have 2 scholarships as a CLG.
So it's out of the CLG funds, the state CLG funds. I mean, we should, somebody should use those. Somebody from the board should go. I'll do it. I'm probably going anyways.
I think I already registered for it, so no
I'll go.
ability to use it, so.
Thank you, Nicole. Is there a vote?
All in favor?
Aye. All opposed?